The home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Looks like all those gleeful spastics out there that have been taking shots at Oklahoma during the off season, those people that want to see the demise of Oklahoma so bad that they have to grasp onto every little thing that they can find and don't want to really adhere to the extenuating circumstances that were in place last year, may have gotten some bad news because, according to people like, got a list here, Josh Pate, Dan Patrick, Bruce Feldman, and even Joel Klatt are saying that Oklahoma's spring game looks pretty promising. Looks like Oklahoma may be about to turn that corner a little bit sooner than a lot of their rivals really wanted. Let's talk about it. Woo! Well, here we go again. It's another episode of the Outlaw of College Football, and here they come riding on in. They didn't ride in last time, but here they are. That's right, the Outlaw Posse riding on in. The Outlaw Posse is now in effect. I can also be found on Facebook under Jesse Paul Clark, spelled Jessc without the I, and on Twitter at OCF Productions. Now, getting right to it here. You know, usually I don't do a lot of spring game stuff because I'm not a real big fan of spring games because it's a double-edged sword. Your team's beating up on each other, so if the offense does good, then that means the defense sucks. If the defense does good, the offense sucks. So you're going to get those ninny-nanny naysayers and the whole half full glass, half empty glass kind of fans out there just going off. So you really don't get nothing out of it other than a bunch of bickering amongst fans, in my opinion. But the reason why I'm addressing this is because a lot of pundits and a lot of national media have been raving about how great Oklahoma's spring game was and how they really accomplished stuff across the board. Now, it wasn't extremely great in every single area, but they said the defense seemed to be vastly improved. Now, granted, a lot of the offensive linemen that usually start for Oklahoma, some of them were not in the game, so, that might be a wait-and-see thing. But regardless, any good news about the defense is a good thing, considering last year they were not very good. But as we know, Brent Venables had a lot of extenuating circumstances that a lot of first-year coaches have never had to deal with. As a matter of fact, no first-year coach has ever had to deal with the mass exodus of players that Brent Venables had to deal with. And he was still able to manage, with his quarterback injured for 2.5 games, maybe 3 games, I'm not sure, was still able to manage to get his team in a bowl game with all that going on. I think there was like 40-plus players that exited the program. And you go into this spring game, and the thing I was most impressed about, because I watched a few clips, it was the start of the game. Brent Venables is out there, and he was basically talking that smack. I mean, he was basically laying it down and saying, hey, look, this is the year that Oklahoma, where we're going to build to the bigger and better things in life that Oklahoma fans expect. As a matter of fact, this is our last year in the Big 12, and we're going to do what we can to make sure that last Big 12 season ends with a Big 12 championship. Now, a lot of the Big 12 officials out there, they're probably just snickering because we all know what they did to Texas and Oklahoma last year as far as penalties go. And we're not going to get into all that because, then you got people coming in here, the skittle shitters and all the other haters, and like, oh, you making excuses. And I don't usually talk about the officials, but it was pretty horrendous. But anyway, I was watching Josh Pate, and he was talking about Deshaun McCullough, a linebacker that had transferred from Indiana, talking about how great he looked on the field and the transition he's made to Oklahoma. I mean, he balled out at Indiana when he was at Indiana, and it seemed like that's what you're having a lot of now these days. A lot of these mid-tier teams have somewhat become farm systems for the blue blood programs. Sad thing to see, but it's happening. And he said that Deshaun McCollum could be a major impact player this year. Once again, great news for Oklahoma because that is on the defensive side of the ball. If you got people like Josh Pate and Joel Klatt out there saying these things, I mean, usually people like Joel Klatt and Bruce Feldman, they're not very complimentary of Oklahoma, yet they were of this one. But the energy by Brent Venables was amazing. As a matter of fact, Brent Venables, got this from Josh Pate as well, called out all those programs out there that have been taking shots at Oklahoma and Alabama and other programs that pride themselves on the attendance at their spring games. And Brent Venables had a pretty nice quote. And that quote, I'm just paraphrasing here, not word for word, but that quote went along the lines of something like this. Those teams out there that try to make light of people that are proud of their attendance at spring games are usually those teams that don't have their fans show up. Their fans are not loyal. Their fans are fair weather fans, bandwagon fans, not to name any names, but USC, Miami, teams like that. The recruits see it. And if you want to, everybody's like, how in the hell is Brent Venables out recruiting a lot of these programs that are supposed to, be better than them? Teams that had better records than them last year. He has out recruited numerous teams back-to-back years. He had a top 10 class last year coming in amongst all that turmoil. And then this year he had a top 5 class. How does he do that? By energy and genuine behaviors and the fact that little things like attendance at a spring game, when you bring your recruits in and they see that, they see the passion and the loyalty and the atmosphere is electric, more times than not, you're going to beat out all those USCs and Michigans and Miami. And you're going to beat them out because they're not as passionate. They might be blue blood, but for some reason it seems like their fans are not quite as passionate as some of the other blue bloods out there. Another guy that was mentioned in his first year at Oklahoma as well was true freshman Peyton Bowen. They have been comparing him to Caleb Downs, who was the number 1 recruit in the nation that's at Alabama, who's turning heads for Nick Saban and his defensive staff. So that's yet another defensive player that's turning heads in the spring game. Once again, seems as though Brent Venables and them have done their evaluation correctly. I mean, anybody can go out and get 5-star recruits to come to their program. But can you get the right 5-star recruits and evaluate the ones that are actually going to pan out? So far, seems like Brent Venables has been doing a pretty good job of that. And that's going to equal success on the field. And what's really eerily similar for me here is the fact that his path, the way he's taken it, almost seems sort of like Nick Saban's path at Alabama. Now, Nick Saban finished slightly better his first year at 7-6, but that's not much of a difference. And the second year coming in, everybody was like, yeah, Nick Saban, he was overrated, and Alabama's never going to be back. Alabama's gone. They're done. The same thing's happening in Oklahoma, except now they are set up to where, especially with the returning starters they have and the fact that they're not having to go through all this turmoil, sort of like Nick Saban did in his first year at Alabama, it lends to make you think there's going to be a big flip in the script here. Alabama, as you know, came back the next following year and went, I think it was undefeated going into the Florida game, the SEC game. They lost that game and the bowl game. They ended up like 10-2 or 11-2, which was a vast improvement. And I could see Oklahoma doing exactly the same thing. We all know what happened in Nick Saban's third year. He won a national championship. So, all these people out there, like I've been trying to tell them, man, what would you rather have? Short-term success and be the second place winner of the Cotton Bowl? You want to be runner-up to Tulane and go 11-3 and possibly 9-4 every year? Or do you want to build for the long-term success like Kirby Smart has done with Georgia and Nick Saban's done at Alabama, and to some degree what Bob Stoops did in the early part of his coaching career at Oklahoma? Or do you want to be like Auburn and LSU and Miami, who all had coaches that come in and won national championships, and then after they got their program fully in place, they started losing 4, 5, and 6 games a year, a la Larry Coker, Gene Chizik, Ed Orgeron. That's what I see happening in some of these programs in the future. Yeah, you had a little short-term success, but is it going to equal long-term success when you get your program in place? I just don't see it happening for some of these teams out there. Jackson Arnold and Dylan Gable were also mentioned by some of these guys. Dylan Gable did what he was supposed to do as a returning starter. He looked decent. Jackson Arnold was shaky at first, but hey, he was just playing high school ball 2 or 3 months ago. But he did lead a touchdown drive from what I understood, which is big for a true freshman coming in. So, like I said, y'all think I've been trolling and trying to prop up the Oklahoma people out there, but it's just, I've seen this in the past. I've seen this in the history of college football, how these things work out. And, yeah, y'all might be for a rude awakening this year and next year. The raft that is the blue blood that we call Oklahoma football, I think it's coming. Now, there's a heart down here. If you don't mind, hit that. Throw me a few dollars in the coffers and get me off that YouTube teat. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams' classes now officially dismissed.